Hey there. Good morning, friends. Dave Marcolla here from, as you can see, Keller Williams, and also from the Newtown Business Association Board of Directors and the Emerging Leaders Committee. And this is our first official Coaches on Couches with Coffee. And as you can see, I've got my coffee mug with beautiful, Maine scenery on there. And I'm on a couch. So probably like most of you, this is a time for us to stay safe and to stay home, but stay productive and stay focused on how we can help each other and how we can help grow our businesses. So this morning for our 30-minute session, this is all about real estate Q&A. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the questions I've been getting right now around real estate and some of the things that you might have on your mind too. So hopefully it's helpful to you, and you can feel free to message in any questions you have. And if I don't get to them here in the session, I'll certainly follow up with you and get you that answer afterwards. So first of all, I'm hearing from a lot of people, a lot of clients, prospective clients, they're wondering, gosh, is this a horrible time to buy or sell a house? Or is this a really good time, right? Because a lot of times when things happen in the market or things happen to the world in general that can cause challenges to the market, that can be a benefit, right? Sometimes that can actually work out in people's favor. You often hear, obviously, in real estate about the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market. So when you think buyer's market, that means that the buyer has the advantage. So in a situation where you have a buyer's market, that means that there's a lot of inventory, a lot of people selling homes out there. And so therefore the buyer can say, well, you know what, I've got a lot of choices out here. I'm not going to pay top dollar for your house. If you don't give me a good deal, I'm going to move on to the next house, right? So it's a good time to be a buyer in a buyer's market. Now, alternatively, in a seller's market, that's where the opposite is true, right? So that's where there's not much inventory and you have a lot of buyers looking to buy a house. So you say, you know what, I'm going to sell my house because I can get top dollar, because if the buyer doesn't want to pay me, what else are they going to buy, right? So for the most part, lately, we've been in a seller's market. If you look back over the past year or so, probably even a little bit longer than that, it's been a seller's market where prices have been reaching top dollar, above and beyond asking price for some homes. So what happens is over time that will shift. It's sort of a pendulum that goes back and forth, or a roller coaster, if you will. You go back in history and you'll see that the trends have gone up and down from buyer to seller markets. And so that's where you want to hedge your bets a little bit, depending on if you're a buyer or a seller, where you're going to make out the most. But I always tell clients, if you're going to sell your house and then move to a different home, so you're going to sell and you're going to buy, it doesn't matter which market it is, right? Because you may make out in a seller's market as the seller, but then you're buying in that same market, so you may not do as well on the buy side. So it's kind of hard to say you're going to take advantage of one or the other. From an investment property perspective, when's a good time to invest in additional properties? Again, that's when there's a lot of properties out there, and so it's a buyer's market, right? So you can hopefully get a deal on a good deal on a property that you can purchase in that time frame. So if you're downsizing, if you're maybe a senior, a boomer, you're looking to move to an apartment, a rental, a smaller home, but if you're only selling an estate sale, let's say someone passes away and you have to sell that home, then obviously you're going to do the best in a seller's market. So what's going on right now is we've got listings out there. I have homes for sale that are on the market in Pennsylvania right now. As real estate agents, we can't show those homes in person, so we're leveraging virtual tours. So you see these all the time. There's all different kinds of virtual tours out there, whether it be just looking through the photos on the MLS or wherever you're looking at homes, or a lot of us are hiring really high-tech expert videographers to come in and do a full video tour using different kinds of technology, where you can even potentially see 3D, the different layers of the home that will help our buyers be able to experience the home without being there. So a lot of that technology is going on. Are people still listing their homes? Absolutely. Every day I'm getting updates and I'm seeing new listings coming on the market. In New Jersey, we don't have the mandate of where you cannot show homes. You can, as long as it's in a safe manner and one-on-one. And that changes every day. So in New Jersey, you're seeing a little bit more engagement versus just relying on virtual. But most of us are saying, let's be safe, right? Let's do the right thing in this time, whether it's a few weeks, a month, whatever it might take. In the grand scheme of things, lives are more important. So should you list your home if you're thinking about selling? It depends on the specific situation. So you want to talk to your realtor. You want to understand what's the difference between doing it now versus waiting a month, right? If your home is occupied and you don't want to have inspectors come in or photographers come in because of the risk that may prevent, then you probably should wait. If it's an unoccupied home, it's vacant, why not put it on the market, see what happens? You will see, I think you're hearing a lot from people that are projecting, financial analysts, experts in real estate, that what happens when this all dies down and we're back to normal and we're all back out in the marketplace doing our business. Well, you can expect a lot of people have probably held off and waited to be safe, and all that activity is going to come back. What we don't know is, will that be way more homes for sale than there are buyers, way more buyers coming back out excited to go look at houses, or will they equal, right? Will they be pretty much equal? So it's not a buyer's market or a seller's market, but it's just a really great, vibrant market. That's what we're hoping for, right? Everybody kind of wins in that situation. But it's an unknown. We haven't been here before. Tomorrow in our 10:30 session, Coaches on Couches with Coffee, you'll hear from Bill Mervin of Apex Loans. Now, he's going to talk to you about the state of mortgage borrowing right now and what's going on with mortgage companies, because that's pretty, one, it's pretty important, but number two, it's pretty interesting stuff, what's going on between mortgage buyers, mortgage servicers, mortgage companies. There's all these different layers, and if you're not familiar, it's going to be very educational. And that will also drive where we go in the next few months as far as buying power for those that have a need to use a mortgage to make that purchase. And where are rates going, right? We had rates come down dramatically the past 6 months, and folks took advantage of that, which is great. And that really helped the marketplace, and it helped our sellers sell homes out there. Right now, the rates have gone up a little bit in some places due to the inability to service some of these mortgages right now, because of changes in the mortgage industry, and trying to prevent and make sure there's no chance that we have the same thing we had back in 2008, where people couldn't pay their mortgages because of job loss and all that. So again, Bill will talk more about that tomorrow, but that's another key part that plays an important role in what's the housing market look like. So again, I would say for those of you that are asking, well, what should I do? Perfect time to talk to your real estate agent and make sure that you have that conversation to really get into all the minutia, the details of why you're buying or selling, because a lot of the times the whys are going to answer the whens and the hows, right? So each client is an individual situation. I had a closing on Monday. I have a closing today on a home that was just sold. I have one that was supposed to happen Monday that has now been delayed until hopefully next week. It'll still happen. So they're all nuanced. They're all different. One of the other questions I get is right now, what are we doing to, how do we keep things that are already in the pipeline, so to speak, not like new listings or buyers, but stuff that's already been under contract, and we want to be able to get those deals closed and people into their homes. How are we handling those? So again, I have to say it's different for each specific client, but I can give you some examples. For instance, each title company too. Some title companies, they're the ones that actually handle the closing, the final documentation, and everybody signing at the table and exchange of keys. Some of those are not operating. Some are closed. Some are operating in ways that I might question whether it makes sense and is safe for everyone. I can say the title company that we use through Keller Williams, Greater Penn Abstract, now is, I think, into week 2 of tents in parking lots, and our closers are wearing full Tyvek suits, and they're walking up to the car. They're protecting our clients. We're getting a signature. The client doesn't get out of the car, and they drive on. The seller, the buyer, keys, leave, have a nice day. So we're doing everything, and our partners, thankfully, are doing everything to, one, make sure business continues and people get into their homes that they've contracted for, because at this point it's kind of hard to go backwards and say, oh, let's just wait, let's cancel the movers, let's cancel this. A lot of time these closings are, somebody's buying a home that's dependent on the sale of another home, and then that's dependent on somebody else's life, and their domino effects. So we can't just easily say, well, that's it, everybody stay home for a bit and nothing will continue. We have to find creative ways to make sure everybody's goals are met. So safety first, work with a company, a realtor, a title company, a lender that is finding creative ways to keep people safe, but getting business done. And again, it depends. Pennsylvania, New Jersey right now, because these decisions that are being made are all state level, even though they're federally encouraged. The governors are calling the shots on what's essential, what's not, and how business gets done, and what's deemed safe and what's not. So again, depends on your personal situation. I work in New Jersey and PA, so I see both sides of it. Each are different. And so that will bring me to another topic that I wanted to hit on, which I get often questions about. Why, well, let's just say, should I have an attorney involved if I'm going to buy or sell a home? And the way that works is, honestly, it's driven by just kind of what is the natural way of doing business, what's the norm, so to speak, not based on a requirement. And so that's driven by metro areas. So you think about, we always talk about people's accents. Well, if you're near New York, you probably have more of a New York accent. If you live near Philadelphia, you probably have more of a Philadelphia accent, and how that influences the areas around it. It's the same thing with whether you need an attorney or whether you choose to use an attorney for a real estate transaction. So in New York, for instance, 99% of transactions, attorneys are involved. So if you live in North Jersey, or you live in New York or in that vicinity, it's very typical to use attorneys. And as you move further south away from New York, it becomes less and less. It may be 80%, 70%. So by the time you get down to the Princeton area and Hopewell Township, that area, it's about 50-50. You go down to Philadelphia, 99% of transactions do not use an attorney for real estate. So, and I'm talking residential real estate. So South Jersey, most of Pennsiliania, does not use an attorney. So it makes it interesting. The decision is up to the clients, right? And oftentimes clients will ask me, especially because I work in this part, Bucks County, Central New Jersey, especially in the Central New Jersey part, whether they should use an attorney or not. And it's really going to be a client's decision. We as real estate agents can't influence that, but we can just lay out kind of the guidelines and also provide a list of attorneys that we've worked with, and then you can have that conversation specifically. So it's an independent decision. I've seen where it's definitely been beneficial when, especially if the client on the other side, if you're a buyer and we find out the seller has an attorney or vice versa, I've seen many times where it's been beneficial then to go ahead and get an attorney, because things have gotten a little wonky and the other attorney's driving the transaction, so to speak. And so it helps to have a peer on the other side representing you. So again, I say, talk it through with your real estate agent, think through all the facts, do some research. We're in a wonderful time as far as you can be an expert in anything if you have a connection to the internet, right? Everything's out there. There's past experiences, there's opinions. Do your research and make your choices wisely. Another question that I often get is around whether to, if you have the cash, should you just purchase a home cash, or does it make sense to keep that cash handy and do a mortgage, right? So again, like any other financial decision, you want to talk through that with your financial advisor, perhaps your accountant. There's many benefits and pieces of information you want to consider from both perspectives, from a tax perspective as well. But the easiest answer I always give is, look at the cost of money, right? So what does it cost you to get a $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 mortgage? If that interest rate, which is your cost, that's your primary driver, that interest rate is 3%, let's say 4%. Okay. Then look at, if you had the $500,000 in the bank that you could pay cash, and people do, what is the interest rate you're getting for that in the bank? What about, if your interest rate you're getting at the bank or your investments is 6%, 7% on your investments, maybe not as much in a savings account, but if it's in your investments, right? So that's more than double what you're going to pay on the mortgage, right? So doesn't it make more sense, I would think, to finance the home, get a mortgage, and go ahead and keep your money invested, making money for you? The other thing to think about is, people say, well, but don't I have a better chance of getting the house if I give a cash offer than a mortgage? Again, it depends on that situation. It's important to have your realtor really look into the transaction. So in other words, if we're going to put in an offer for you and I'm your realtor on the buyer side, I would talk to the agent on the other side and the seller side and get a sense of how many offers are they getting? Are they getting a lot of activity? Does their seller seem like they're leaning one way or the other? They prefer a cash offer, they don't care, they want to move fast, they don't. A lot of times we can get some of that information up front and be able to help arm you with that to make a better decision about your strategy. You may not do a cash offer, but maybe you do a mortgage, but you offer more. So it's more viable, more exciting for the seller that, okay, it's not a cash offer, but it's above asking. That's great. For you, one of the defenses that you have in your favor as a buyer is, if you do a mortgage, you automatically have an appraisal contingency, right? Because the mortgage lender isn't going to lend you above and beyond the value of the home. So the house has to be appraised. So that also can be in your benefit, because if, let's say, the house is listed at $400,000 and you offer $410,000, so that you get that seller excited and hopefully they accept your offer. If it then appraises later at $400,000, you can then tell the seller, the only way I can move forward per my bank is I need the home purchase transaction to be at the value of the appraisal. So we need to lower that to $400,000. I can no longer give you $410,000. Now, sometimes that will turn into a negotiation, then we'll go back and forth and have to meet in the middle or whatever it might be, because there's other offers on the table and you don't want to lose the home, but also the seller doesn't want to lower the price completely to the asking price. But it gets you in the ballgame and it gets those discussions going, and it protects you from having to pay more than the home is worth. You can still back out of the transaction if you can't make the deal, but offering a little bit more is going to be a benefit to you, because if there's a bidding war, there's a lot of people interested, it can put you in a good place. And with a mortgage, again, you get the appraisal contingency. With cash, that's not a given. You'd have to ask to have an appraisal contingency in the deal, and sometimes sellers will say no. Just a reminder, I wanted to let you know that you can. We're a little over halfway, about 10 minutes left, so feel free to type in any questions that you have. Happy to answer any specific questions that I haven't touched on. And if I don't get your question in time, I will certainly respond back afterwards. From a real estate perspective, another question I often get is, what's the difference between all the different real estate companies? I work for Keller Williams. Why Keller Williams? What's the difference between that company and another company, and Berkshire Hathaway and Coldwell Banker, and you name them? There's two ways to answer that, right? From a client perspective, you have to look at, what is that company offering you in the way of tools, right? The one way that I would answer that is, you have to say, well, how do I look for my home if I'm a buyer, right? So what tools are you going to give me? So that comes down to asking the real estate agent what technology is available from your company. Keller Williams, we have dedicated apps that you can use and that will show you how to search and easily get market snapshots and updates, and be able to interact digitally and help work together to find your home. But every company is different. The other is, what fees do you charge? Me as a buyer, as a seller, how does that work, right? What resources and partners do you have inside your company? As I mentioned, we have a Greater Penn Abstract, who is the folks in their Tyvek suits and parking lot tents, getting the job done to close transactions. We have lenders, we have insurance company partners, all that kind of stuff. So from a client perspective, I think it's that. And then I think it's also understanding, what is that brand, that company, what's their market share in the area, right? So how much business do they do? That'll help tell you, how well do they know the area? How well do they know selling homes in that area? So I can speak only for Keller Williams at the moment and tell you that we have #1 market share in the country. We have #1 market share in Pennsylvania. We have #1 market share in New Jersey. We have #1 market share in Newtown, because we have high volume. We have a lot of folks doing business. So we have over 190,000 real estate agents in the world, the most of any real estate company. So obviously, Keller Williams' job is to keep our agents happy, so that we have a lot of agents. And then the agent's job obviously is to go do business and to really know the market. So it helps us internally to be able to really share and work together as a team to be experts in the local areas that we serve. From a real estate agent's perspective, why would I choose Keller Williams over a different one? Commission structure. So how do I get paid as a real estate agent? Each company, again, handles that differently. The other thing is, what tools are available to me as well? Do I have someone that can help me with my website? Do I have somebody that can put together a marketing flyer? Do I have, how is photography and signage handled? What do I pay for? Do I have an office? Do I not? What is the team environment like? And what is the culture of the office that I work in and the ownership team? All of those things are out there for all of us to choose from, and as real estate agents, and make sure that we align with the right brand and company that helps us deliver and service our clients. So that's why, there's so many options out there, and it's a good thing. And I think it's imperative on real estate agents like myself to make sure that you're aligned with the right company for you, and you as potential buyers or sellers to make sure you're working with an agent that you connect with. It shouldn't be about what price they're willing to sell your home for. We can all sell homes for whatever price you want, but at the end of the day, who has a good track record, and who do you want to work with for the next 60 to 90 days to get that deal done? Who do you want to hear from every day? And who do you think will be a good partner with that? That's how I would recommend you choose an agent. So one of the questions I got here is, do you think that post-quarantine world will see more people who live in cities moving to suburbs for more space? That's an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought about that, but it makes sense, right? If folks have felt somewhat claustrophobic in their quarantine space, or feeling like, in these cities type environments, something like a COVID-19 can spread faster. I want farmland, I want space. That can certainly happen. We will see. Up to this point, more and more people have been moving into the cities. So city life, especially boomers who are retiring and no longer needing to be near their office space, perhaps in the suburbs, have been moving into condo spaces in the city where they can just walk to dinner, they can walk to see a show. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any counter to that based on that question. That's a good question. Another question, how do you show houses without being physically present at the house? So again, it depends on where you're at. In Pennsylvania, we can't do that, so it's got to be a virtual tour. So that can either be me virtually at the home with FaceTime, as long as I'm alone in the home and it's vacant, doing a FaceTime video tour with my clients. That's probably the easiest way. The other is to upfront do a recorded video tour, as I mentioned earlier, of the home, so that you can, anybody can click on it and take their tour without me having to be there, and me just be available to answer questions via phone or text as needed. But yeah, leveraging technology. It's interesting, coming from before real estate, I worked for Comcast and AT&T before that. And when I was at AT&T, we launched the first ever iPhone. So I've been very engaged with tech in technology until coming into real estate. So it's interesting to see the two things finally start to come together. I mean, hopefully not requiring a pandemic, but there's so much technology at our fingertips. I mean, here's one example, right? We're all talking, we're all together, but we're not. We're all on our own couches. So leveraging that to sell homes, to show homes, is pretty exciting. So it's just a matter of really helping clients understand that's kind of, I don't want to say the new norm, because this isn't going to be forever, but certainly a new platform, and maybe the platform itself will continue and you will see more and more virtual tours even once we're past that. So good question. We've got about 4 minutes left. So if there's any last questions, now would be a good time. Again, these coaches on couches with coffee, will be coming to you every day, Monday through Friday, going forward at 10:30 a.m. And all you have to do is come to the Facebook page of the Newtown Business Association and see the watch party. You can watch these videos again later if you didn't get a chance to attend all of them. But they're brought to you by the Newtown Business Association and the Emerging Leaders Committee, leveraging technology to keep us all connected as a community here in Newtown. And the lineup is on the Newtown Business Association website. Tomorrow, again, we have Bill Mervin from Apex Loans. We'll be talking about the impacts of all of this with mortgages. And we have a lineup through next Friday of next week. So we're still looking for more coaches. So if you're a Newtown Business Association member and you'd be willing to do what I'm doing here, which is very easy, just have a conversation and answer some questions and share some of your knowledge about your specific industry or talent or business, reach out to me, reach out to Denise Alexander, Dan Petty, our committee chairs, and let us know, and we'll get you scheduled and we'll get it promoted and get you lined up so that you can share some information with the rest of the MBA virtually. So I don't see any other questions, and it looks like we're coming up on the end of the 30 minutes. So I hope you found this beneficial. Again, if you thought of any other questions after the fact, anything whatsoever to do with real estate, I didn't touch on commercial real estate. I didn't touch on a lot of nuances of anything. So happy one-on-one to talk to you in more detail. One last question I see here from Lee: how do you protect your clients if inspections can't be completed? Are there new laws in place for protection? So there are a couple things. There's inspection companies are at least in New Jersey, are still doing inspections. They're in the home without the buyer, without the agent, without the homeowner. So they're in their protective gear, and so they're staying safe. They're not infecting the home as well. And all parties are signing a hold harmless agreement so that they are protected, and the seller's protected. We're all protected legally, in addition to from a health perspective. Where there are situations like perhaps in Pennsylvania, if an inspector isn't able to do an inspection and it's put on hold, we also have an addendum that puts the transaction on hold for a period of time based on when in this case, the question is inspection company. If, let's say that we find out the title company can't pull deeds from a township that's closed or whatever it might be, this addendum protects the transaction. So it says that instead of closing in 3 weeks, we're going to close in 5 weeks at this point, because that's the earliest that dependent vendor can come out and do what they need to do, or we can get the deed work from the township. So, it does require everybody to be a little bit flexible. And, these are non-emergency situations, newer transactions that are coming along, not stuff that has been already in the pipeline that we're pushing to close right now. Those things are happening. But yeah, things that are dependent on early items in a new transaction, like inspections, pulling deeds, getting the loan approvals, all of that stuff is really we're asking people to be flexible, and we're documenting that to keep the transaction together and keep both parties on the same page. But we're giving folks the time to do things the right way and to be safe and to protect everybody. So great question. So again, I will leave you with that. Any other questions, reach out to me directly, and I hope to see you guys all tomorrow at 10:30 to talk mortgages. Have a great day and stay safe and enjoy your coffee.